Can you see the material?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the last class, we discussed the locations of the poles. Poles means closed loop poles of the system or roots of the characteristic equation on the S plane. And also we investigated the nature of the response term or terms contributed by those closed loop poles, right? So if we consider a single root located at S equal to sigma, the response term contributed by this particular root of the characteristic equation will be a e to the power sigma t, right? And if we consider complex conjugate root pair at S equal to sigma plus minus j omega, then also we have investigated that the nature of the response term contributed by this complex conjugate root pair will be given by a sine omega t plus beta whole multiplied by e to the power sigma t. Okay. Now let's consider a third order system. Okay. A third order system having a pole, that means closed loop pole, located at S equal to sigma and two complex conjugate pole pair located at sigma plus minus j omega. So since we are getting three roots, that means the system is a third order system. Do you agree? Do you agree? Please respond. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
To respond করো, otherwise তো বোঝা যাচ্ছে না. So it will be a third order system. And since we are discussing linear time invariant system, hence for such a system, the actual response of the system will consist of two components. The first component will be contributed, or rather, one component will be contributed by this particular root, and the second component or the other component will be contributed by this two complex conjugate pole pair, right? So we can write that CT, the output response, time response, output time response, CT, C is a function of time, CT will be a e to the power sigma t plus a sine omega t plus beta whole multiplied by e to the power sigma t. Do you agree? Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let's first focus on the first four types of roots, or focus on this locations: case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. And you see the response terms, all the response term contains a term which is e to the power sigma t. E to the power sigma t here, e to the power sigma t here. We are getting e to the power sigma t. Also, we are getting e to the power sigma t. So, what are the locations of the roots? Single root at is equal to sigma, roots of multiplicity k at is equal to sigma, complex conjugate root pair at is equal to sigma plus minus j omega, and complex conjugate root pair with multiplicity k at is equal to sigma plus j omega. So here we are assuming that sigma, the real part, is not 0. Sigma is not 0. And another interesting thing is, you see, if sigma is positive, then what will happen to this term? That is Ct, a e to the power sigma t, as t tends to infinity, the response term will increase with time, and as time t tends to infinity, the response time will also, the response will also tend towards infinity. And finally, we can say that the response will become unbounded, right? If sigma is positive. Instead, or in contrast, If sigma is negative, then what will happen? If sigma is negative, then as t tends to infinity, what will be the value of this term? What will be the value?
Now it will tend to 0.
It will, so the response term will decay down to 0, right? And that is true for this case, that is true for this case also, since you're having a term which is e to the power sigma t, and that is true for this case. Now, if sigma is positive, let's look at the roots, nature of the roots. Okay, so if sigma is positive, then we can conclude that the root is lying in the right half of the spline. Am I clear? Have you understood? The S plane, actually the S plane consists of two halves. One is the right half of the S plane, the other half is the left half of the S plane, and the imaginary axis actually separates these two halves. I guess you know this.
Yes, ma'am.
So if sigma is positive in this case, or if sigma is positive in this case, that means the associated roots will be lying in the right half of the spline. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
And in that case, you see the response, if the roots are lying, you can say in this way, if the roots are lying in the right half of the spline, then the response term will go on increasing with time. So Ct will go on increasing towards infinity as t tends to infinity, and hence the response term will become unbounded, and as per our definition, we would say that the system is an unstable one. Clear? Whereas if sigma is negative, that means the roots will be lying in the left half of the S plane. Okay? And if the roots are lying in the left half of the S plane, then we find that all the response terms will decay down towards 0 as t tends to infinity, thus making the system stable. Is it clear? Have you understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's focus on these two cases.
Ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, even suppose there for one or two inputs the output is bounded, but for other inputs the output is unbounded. Then, ma'am,
No, 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 no,
the
no,
system
no.
can be called
But
marginally stable.
no, 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 no. The definition of marginally stable is completely different one. And so far, our basic premise is we are assuming we are assuming that
Sorry.
the output response does not depend on the nature of the input. Only one, we have imposed one single constraint on the input, that is the input has to be a bounded one, right? Is it your first class?
No, ma'am.
So already we have discussed that, we have argued that the system response will not at all depend upon the nature of the input, right?
But ma'am, I found one or two examples where for all the inputs except for one or two, the output was bounded or output was unbounded. Those type of cases.
What was the nature? Can you show me the examples?
Ma'am, I
Better,
will show it.
better you post the examples in the group. And were you considering a linear system or a non-linear system?
A linear system.
A linear system whose response output response is varying with input.
Yes.
Yes, it will. Look, the time response will vary. Time response will vary. I don't know. Uh, uh, if you can't show me the example, then I won't be able to answer it properly. But suppose the step response, you have already studied the step response of a second order system.
Yes, ma'am.
So in case of a step response, the
Ma'am, I can
output,
tell you about the example.
please post it in the group.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Then we'll discuss, or I'll send voice message. Okay, I'll
Okay,
look at
ma'am.
the example, and accordingly I'll try to clarify your doubt. And one more thing, what I was telling, that is this a stable system. Already we have discussed that a stable system will always be able to follow its input, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the step response, if you excite the system with a step, the output for a stable system, the output response finally after settling down, the output response will be like a stable, like a step one. Whereas if you excite the system with a ramp input, after settling down, the output response will follow the input ramp signal, right? So why the output can follow the, but the output response for a stable system, even for a ramp input, it might appear that the output is becoming uh, infinitely large. It's not true, because the stable system can follow the input ramp input, and the output response of the system is not deviating farther and farther and farther and farther from the input ramp signal. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So far, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So the fact is that for a stable system, actually the response will not depend upon the nature of the input. It will be able to, for a stable system, the system will be able to generate a response which will follow the input command, right? But whether the system is stable or not, that fact depends upon the locations of the closed loop poles of the system, or roots of locations of the roots of the characteristic equation on the S plane, right? And also we discussed that I told you that there is one exception where exactly where indeed the output response uh, depends upon the nature of the input. That we'll discuss later on. Please share your examples in the group.
Okay, ma'am. I will do.
Now, let us consider this example as well as this example. Complex conjugate root pair at s equal to plus minus j omega. That means simple root on imaginary axis, complex conjugate root pair on imaginary axis, or single root at origin. That means a single root again on the imaginary axis. And the response term are a sine omega t plus beta and a respectively, right? For these two cases. Now here we see that if a simple root or pair of complex conjugate root appears on the imaginary axis, the output response is either undamped oscillation with finite amplitude, here the amplitude is A, or a step-like response with finite amplitude, that is A, right? So the output response is not really decaying down to zero at t tends to infinity in these two cases, or the output response is not also going or increasing towards infinity as t tends to infinity. The output responses are not becoming rather infinite, right? So these two cases cannot be classified in general as a stable or unstable. Instead, we use two terms synonymously, either marginally stable or limitedly stable. Okay, so if a system has a simple root on imaginary axis or complex conjugate root pair on imaginary axis, then the system will be said to be a limitedly or marginally stable one. And as I said, if you can accept this amount of undamped oscillation at the output, then you can work with that particular
এখানে
system
টক নাই, টক আছে, বেগুনি নাই, পেঁয়াজি নাই, ডিম সুজি নাই, অমলেট নাই। দেবো কফি পাওয়া যায়?
unless
কফি
you
না
are
হয়?
interacting,
কফি কফি না হয়?
unless you are interacting, please mute your device. So if you can tolerate this amount of undamped oscillation at the output, you can work with that particular system and the system will be considered to be a stable one. And that is also, that particular logic is valid for this case as well. Now, these two cases where roots with multiplicity are appearing on the imaginary axis. Here, complex conjugate root pair with multiplicity, and here multiple roots at origin. Okay, so in that case, you see the nature of the response term is like this: a1 sine omega t plus b1 plus a2t. Then the second term will be a2t square. This one is ak t to the power k minus 1, right? So what will happen? Again, as t tends to infinity, the response C2 will tend towards infinity, right? So it will become unbounded and hence the system will be unstable. Here also the same logic will apply. A1, A2t, right? Because of the presence of these t terms as t tends to infinity, C2 will tend towards infinity and the system will be an unstable one. So please note that we know this. The roots of the characteristic equation of a system can be either real or complex conjugate or in combination of these two. This part already I have explained that if sigma is present, if sigma is non-zero, then if sigma is less than 0, then that means the root will appear in the left half of the S-plane, and in that case the system will be stable. And if sigma is greater than 0, that means the root will appear on the right half of the S-plane and the system will be unstable. And roots on the j omega axis with multiplicity, for that case, for these cases, the response term will tend towards infinity as t tends to infinity, and hence the system will be unstable. And single root at origin or simple conjugate roots on imaginary axis contribute response terms which are either constant amplitude or constant amplitude oscillations. So in that case, the system will be called to be marginally or limitedly stable one. Also, we have already discussed two notions of stability, that is Biot stability and asymptotic stability. And for linear time invariant system, we know that if a system is a Biot stable one, then it will be an asymptotically stable one as well, which is not true for nonlinear system. Now, next is instability due to resonance. Here, the term that you should note is resonance. So, instability due to resonance, this is the case where the stability of a system actually depends upon the locations of the roots of the characteristic equation on the S-plane as well as on the nature of the input, right? So in this case, we can't say that the output or stability of the system is not independent of the nature of the input, but yes, we'll find that the stability of the system is dependent on the nature of the input. Now, before discussing this phenomenon, rather, let's look at one example. And it will be helpful for us to understand what is meant by instability due to resonance. So let's consider a system having a closed loop transfer function Ts given by 4 by S into S plus 4. Okay, let's note it down. That means Cs by Rs is equal to 4 by S into S plus 4. That is the closed loop transfer function of the system. Note it down. Okay, so Cs by Rs is 4 by S into S plus 4. So what are the locations of the closed loop poles of the system? One real pole is there at S equal to minus 4. That means the real root of the characteristic equation is lying in the left half of the S plane. Fine. But there is another pole, closed loop pole, or another root of the characteristic equation, and that particular closed loop pole of the system is lying at the origin of the S plane. That is, the second pole, or rather the second pole is on the imaginary axis and at the origin of the S plane. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So, for the timing, we can say, so far what we have discussed, from that particular knowledge, we can say that since there is a pole at origin, hence the system cannot be a stable one. At best, it could be a limitedly stable one. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Now suppose instead of unit impulse, if we excite the system using a unit step input, the input to the system is unit state. That means Cs by Rs, where Rs or RT is unit state. It should be RT. RT is a unit step signal. So Rs will be 1 by S. That means Cs will be equal to 4 by S square into S plus 4. Isn't it? Do it. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if we take inverse Laplace transform to find out Ct, then we'll find that one term will be present, which is A into T. Isn't it? A is some constant. Because Cs is equal to now 4 by S square into S plus 4. So because of this 1 by S square term, Ct will contain a term which is function of time At. Do you agree? Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So what will happen to Ct as t tends to infinity?
It
Ct
will
will
also
also
tend to infinity.
tend towards infinity as t tends to infinity. That means finally the output of the system will become infinite, right? So the system will act like an unstable one. It's not a limitedly stable or marginally stable one. Now it has become an unstable one, right? So already we have noted that one closed loop pole of the system is lying on the imaginary axis, and what is RS? What is the expression of RS? RS is 1 by S. So the input, the transformed version of the input has got a pole at origin. 1 by S. So the input has a pole at origin. Right? So system has a pole at origin and the input has a pole at origin on the imaginary axis, right? And these two pole locations are identical. Or I can say that the one system pole on the imaginary axis matches with the system pole, with the pole of the input. One system pole on the imaginary axis, it's simple. The pole is simple in nature, it's not repeated. One simple pole, non-repeated pole of the system on the imaginary axis matches with a pole in the input, right? That's why the system is behaving like an unstable system. Since the system pole on the imaginary axis and the pole of the input is identical in nature, co-located. These two poles are co-located, located at the same place. That's why this instability or this kind of behavior of a system is called instability due to resonance. So already we have argued that the condition of stability of an LTI system is independent of the nature of the inputs. There is one exception, and that is where the stability of the system will actually depend upon the nature of the input, and this phenomenon is known as instability due to resonance. So when instability due to resonance, when we face this kind of problem, this phenomenon may occur when a simple system pole, note, simple system pole, that means without having any multiplicity, appears on the imaginary axis, as we have seen, right? If in such a system, an input is applied which has a pole that matches with one of the simple system poles on imaginary axis, then the output response of the system will become unbounded, right? So this is known as resonance phenomenon. And this phenomenon is also known as instability due to resonance. Have you understood this? What is instability?
Ma'am, would you please repeat the resonance part? That means what is resonance?
Resonance means one pole location is matching with the other pole location. That's
That
why
means
we are
multiple pole.
No. The poles are co-located. One pole location is matching with the other pole location. Because of this matching phenomenon, we use the term resonance.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Here again, I am repeating, you see, this is the closed loop transfer function. Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
the system has got a pole at s equal to 0
Yes.
on the imaginary axis.
Hmm.
And if we excite the system with unit step, then RS will be 1 by S.
Yes.
So the input is also having a pole at s equal to 0.
Oh, okay.
Isn't
Understood.
it? So
Yes, ma'am.
this pole location and the input pole location, these two are same, identical. This matching phenomenon. Because of this matching phenomenon, we use the term resonance, and since these two poles are co-located, hence the system response will be unbounded. Now is
Yes,
it clear?
ma'am. Understood. Yes, clear.
Similarly, please try to solve this simple example. We have taken another system having a closed loop transfer function 1 by s plus 2 s square plus 1. So simple, non-repeated, simple complex conjugate pole pair on imaginary axis, right? So if we excite this system with an input RT that is sine t, then RS will be 1 by s square plus 1, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So in that case, CS will be 1 by s plus 2 into s plus 1 whole square.
Yes, ma'am.
So CT again, if you take Laplace inverse, you'll find that CT is unbounded, right? So this is basically the phenomenon of instability due to resonance. Is it absolutely clear to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, is it only legible when the loop location, sorry, pole location of the transfer function and the pole location of the input matches?
Yes,
Is it only for legible for this?
pole location means if the system has simple poles on the imaginary axis, then only will face this problem.
Okay, madam.
The system is having a simple pole on the imaginary axis and the input is also having a pole at the same location on the imaginary axis.
Okay, madam. Okay.
So this is one figure depicting the region of stability on the S-plane. Yes, any question? Do you have any question? Okay. So as you can see, this is S-plane, right? The real axis is denoted by sigma. The imaginary axis has been denoted by j omega. So this is the S-plane. This is the right half of the S-plane, and this is the left half of the S-plane, right? So the left half of the S-plane, if all the poles, all the closed loop poles of a system are confined in the left half of the S-plane. Left half of the S-plane means we are not considering the imaginary axis. Right half of the S-plane, again, we are not considering the imaginary axis. The imaginary axis actually separates these two halves. So left half means actually this left half of the S-plane excluding the imaginary axis. So if all the poles of the closed loop poles of the system, or in other words, if all the roots of the characteristic equation of a system are completely confined within the left half of the S-plane, then the system will be stable, and not only stable, the system will be asymptotically stable, right? So this is the region of stability. Region of stability. Now, if a simple pole is there on the imaginary axis, or simple complex conjugate pole pair are there on the imaginary axis, one simple complex conjugate pair on the imaginary axis, but the rest of the poles are in the left half of the S-plane. Rest of the poles are in the left half of the S-plane, right? So since the rest of the poles are lying in the left half of the S-plane, their individual response terms will decay down to 0 as t tends to infinity, right? Only the simple pole pair or simple pole on the imaginary axis will contribute a term which is either either an undamped oscillation with finite amplitude, or a constant or finite amplitude. Okay. So, because of that particular term, the system response will not be able to decay down to zero, and hence the system will be called limitedly stable one or marginally stable one. And it's a personal choice depending on the amplitude. Uh, it's a personal choice of the system designer or system engineer to consider the system to be a stable one or an unstable one. Now, this is the region, the right half of S plane is the region of instability, and if for an nth order system, if n minus one number of poles, poles means in this context always I'm referring to closed loop poles or roots of the characteristic equation. So for an nth order system, okay, if we find that n minus one number of poles are lying in the left half of the S-plane, no polar poles are there on the imaginary axis. As I said, n minus one number of poles are in the left half of the S-plane, but one single pole is there in the right half of the S-plane. One single pole, right? How the system will behave? Will it be a stable one or an unstable one?
Unstable.
Unstable one, because the single pole lying in the right half of the S-plane will make the response to increase, response increase towards infinity as t tends to infinity, right? All the response terms contributed by the rest n minus one number of roots of the characteristic equation will decay down to zero as t tends to infinity, but for the single root in the right half of the S-plane, ultimately the response term will go increase towards infinity as t tends to infinity, and hence the system will be unstable. So if all the roots are confined in the left half of the S-plane, excluding obviously the j omega axis, our conclusion is the system is asymptotically stable. Not only stable, it's asymptotically stable, right? And the right half of the S-plane is the region of instability, always unstable even if a single closed loop pole lies in this half. So far, is this clear? So far, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And if simple roots are there on the imaginary axis, then stable in a limited sense, if you can allow that much of uh, deviation at the output. But the response, even if the system is stable, the response will be, that means limitedly stable or marginally stable, the system will be non-asymptotically stable as the response term is not decaying down to zero as t tends to infinity. So all these conclusions or observations or findings have been summarized like this. So in this, so locations of the closed loop poles and stability, or locations of the roots of the characteristic equation and stability. So all the system poles are in the left half of the S-plane. Is it legible? Is it legible?
Yes, ma'am.
So all the system poles are in the left half of the S-plane. So the system is asymptotically stable. The other extreme case, only one single pole lies in the right half of the S-plane, while the rest are in the left half of the S-plane. When we are when we say that left half of the S-plane, that means we are excluding the imaginary axis. So the system, even if a single pole lies in the right half of the S-plane, the system will be unstable. And the third case, some of the system poles are on the imaginary axis and the rest are in the left half of the S-plane. Okay, some of the system poles, that means none of the system poles are appearing in the right half of the S-plane. If that be the case, the system will be unstable. So some of the system poles are on the imaginary axis and the rest are in the left half of the S-plane. So in this particular, if we face such a situation, then there could be three cases. At least one of the system poles on the imaginary axis is repeated in nature, is repeated in nature. So if the system poles on the imaginary axis are repeated in nature, we know that the response term will go on increasing towards infinity, and hence the system is unstable. That is conclusion. Now the next case, at least one of the system poles on the imaginary axis is present in the form of pole in RS, that means input. That is in the input. All the system poles are simple in nature, and this is all the system poles on the imaginary axis are simple in nature, but at least one of the system poles, simple system poles on the imaginary axis is present in the form of a pole in RS, then already we have studied that the system will behave like an unstable one, and this we call this phenomenon is known as instability due to resonance. And the third case, all the poles of the imaginary axis is simple, that is without having any multiplicity, and rest are in the left half of the S-plane, and none of these poles are present in the input RS. So the system will be a limitedly stable one and will be a non-asymptotically stable. System will be called a limitedly or marginally stable, and the system will be a non-asymptotically stable one. So these are the system responses, some representative system responses. Here you can see one real pole in the left half of the S-plane. This is the S-plane in the left half of the S-plane, and the response is decaying down to 0 as t tends to infinity. In the right half of the S-plane, real root of the characteristic equation in the right half of the S-plane, you see the response term is increasing. This is CT, corresponding impulse response. So all these are in the y-axis. We are plotting CT, output response, CT versus T. So it's going on, it's increasing. Complex conjugate root pair in the left half of the S-plane. So damped oscillation, and finally the oscillation will die down. Absolutely. And in the right half of the S-plane, complex conjugate root pair, you see the amplitude of the oscillation is going on increasing, and finally it will become infinite. On the imaginary axis, complex conjugate root pair, undamped oscillation with finite amplitude, repeated complex conjugate pole pair on the imaginary axis, the output response will be like this case, okay? And as we can see that the output response is going on increasing, and the output response is increasing towards infinity. It's becoming unbounded. At origin, constant. Output is constant, and double pole at origin, the response will increase like this. So this is not perfectly legible, but this is not required as well, because already I have explained what is meant by instability due to resonance. So this part is also not required. Only this portion here we have summarized our conclusion regarding the stability of the system. I guess this part is legible. Can you read this part? Is it legible?
Yes, ma'am.
So if the first conclusion, first inference, if all the roots of the characteristic equation have negative real parts, the system is stable. Already we have discussed all these issues in detail. That's why I'm just reading out. Inference 2, if any root of the characteristic equation has a positive real part, that means sigma. Positive real part, that means positive sigma, or if there is a repeated root on the j omega axis, the system is unstable. Right? And the third inference, if the condition 1 is satisfied, that means the roots are in the left half of the S-plane, for the presence of one or more non-repeated roots on the j omega axis, the system is limitedly stable. That means no root is there in the right half of the S-plane. The essence of this point is no root is there in the right half of the S-plane. Most of the roots are in the left half of the S-plane. Only some simple roots are present on the imaginary axis. So the system will be said to be a limitedly stable one. And also, so we have classified a system, or we have found the condition of stability of a system. A system could be either stable or unstable, or limitedly or marginally stable. There are a few more terms which are of interest, which we use in general. Absolutely stable. And absolute stability has got another meaning that I'll explain when I'll discuss Routh-Hurwitz criteria. So in general, absolutely stable, a system is said to be absolutely stable with respect to a parameter. You know, if we change the parameter of the system, it might so happen that a higher order system may become unstable, right? So a system will be absolutely stable with respect to a parameter of the system if it is stable for all the values of these parameters. So suppose we are changing the parameter, a particular parameter of the system. So the change in parameter will get reflected in the coefficient of the characteristic equation. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So naturally, if we change the parameter, one particular parameter of the system over a wide range, the coefficient of the characteristic equation will change continuously, and accordingly, if we solve the characteristic equations repeatedly, we'll find that the locations of the roots of the characteristic equation are changing, right? And it might so happen that a root might move from left half to right half, thus making the system unstable. And if that is not the case, that means if we change the parameter over a wide range, say from 0 to infinity, theoretically from 0 to infinity, and all the roots remain for all the values of the parameter remain in the left half of the S-plane, then we say that the system is absolutely stable with respect to that particular parameter. And conditionally stable means the system is stable for a certain range of the value of the parameter. right? Or certain range of the parameter. And if the value of the parameter is set beyond that particular range, then the system might become unstable. So a system is said to be conditionally stable with respect to a parameter if the system is stable, is stable for only certain bounded ranges of values of this parameter, right? Already I have shown this diagram. This is the S-plane, region of stability, left half of S-plane. This is region of instability, right half of S-plane. And so, so far we have used, we have come across a few terms related with this notion of stability of a system, like limitedly stable or marginally stable, then absolutely stable, then conditionally stable. And as I said, I'll explain what is meant by the notion of absolute stability while I'll be discussing Routh-Hurwitz's criterion. There is another very important term associated with the stability of the system, and the term is relative stability. Relative stability. So far the stability, the definitions of different types of stability notions that we have discussed are qualitative in nature. Is the system absolutely stable with respect to this parameter? If you pose a question in this manner, the answer could be either yes or no. You get my point? A system is absolutely stable with respect to a parameter. So we can pose a question like this. Is the system absolutely stable with respect to this particular parameter? The answer to this question will be either yes or no. Could there be any other answer? Hello? Hello?
No,
Please
ma'am.
Hmm? Similarly, whether the system is conditionally stable or not, yes, the system could be conditionally stable with respect to a parameter, and we can specify the range, etc. But so those are basically qualitative notion, qualitative definition of stability. Whereas relative stability, here we have tried to find out the degree of stability. I'm using this particular term. You might not get this particular term. To make you understand, I'm using this term. The degree of relatability, stability of a system. That means we are trying to quantify the notion of stability, right? So relative stability, we'll discuss this while we'll be discussing Nyquist stability criterion in detail. So I'm not going into the detail of relative stability, but this notion actually helps us quantifying the concept of stability. Like if we pose a, suppose two system, you're given two systems, system A and system B. So we might be interested in the fact that whether system A is more stable than system B, or whether system B is more stable than system A. Have you understood what I'm saying? Have you understood what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So in this case, you see the stability notions that we have discussed so far are applied for a, can be applied for a single system only. Say system A, yes, it's absolutely stable with respect to a particular parameter. Yes, the system is stable, the system is unstable, the system is limitedly or marginally stable. System A could be conditionally stable with respect to a particular parameter, and This is valid for system B as well. The system B could be stable, unstable, limitedly stable, absolutely stable with respect to a parameter, or conditionally stable with respect to a parameter, right? But if you want to compare system B with system A, right? And if we try to find out whether system B, suppose both the systems are stable, so we want to find out which system is more stable. So then it's required to quantify the notion of stability. That's why I use the term the degree of stability of a system. How much stable a system is, right? So for that, we'll have to quantify the stability, notion of stability, so that we can compare the stability of the system, of two systems. Okay, so you have already studied relative stability, already studied. Can you tell me at least one or two terms that describes or describe the relative stability of a system? Do you get my question? Do I have to repeat myself? Please respond fast. Hello? Are you listening? Is anybody present in the class?
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you respond? By not responding, you are just wasting the time. So tell me, all of you who are present in the class, please unmute your device one at a time and try to answer this question. Again, I am repeating the question. We have already studied a few relative stability measures with the help of which we can find out the degree of stability of a system, or we can compare the degree of stability of two systems. Can you tell me one or two such terms that you have already studied? Terms used to describe the relative stability of a system.
Ma'am, settling time, relative damping.
Relative damping. Relative damping. What is relative damping?
Damping ratio.
Settling time, yes, I can accept that one. In time domain, settling time.
Or
And in
peak
frequency,
overshoot.
yes, peak over should actually give you, it's not actually indicative of stability. Settling time is basically indicative of this, or is associated with the stability of the system, because the system settle downs. And peak overshoot actually gives you the uh, depicts the transient behavior of the system, not the steady state behavior. Do you understand the
Yes,
difference
ma'am.
between these
Yes,
two?
ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am.
it will give you the idea how fast the system is, how quick the response is. Okay.
Ma'am,
So not
rise and fall
actual,
time.
no, rise and fall time. Fall time cannot be associated. Exactly, cannot be associated with the stability aspect. Rise time for a second order system, rise time, you can define rise time for stick or ramping code, and for first order system, time constant. But these are, as I said, rise time is also indicative. Rise time, how do we mark the rise time? The rise time appears in the transient response of the system, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Rise time, peak, overshoot, all this actually describe the transient behavior of the system, not the steady state behavior. Whereas the settling time, yes, the settling time actually describes the steady state part of the system. Rise time is also indicative of the speed of response, how fast the response is. Okay, settling time. And in frequency domain, have you studied Bode plot?
Yes, ma'am.
So in frequency domain, relative stability measures, indices. বোর্ডে প্লট পড়ার সময় কি কি টার্ম পেয়েছো একটু বলো তো? ফাস্ট ফাস্ট।
কর্নার ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি,
কর্নার ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি ছাড়া আর কিছু? আর কোনো টার্ম? গেন মার্জিন, ফেজ মার্জিন পড়েছিলে?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So this gain margin, phase margin, these are measures or indices for measuring the relative stability of a system. For example, as I said, suppose we do have two systems. We'll discuss this. You have
ম্যাম
two
এই
systems.
গেইন মার্জিন বা ফেজ মার্জিন এগুলো তো বোধহয় নাইকুইস্ট প্লট পড়ার সময় পেয়েছিলাম।
Nyquist প্লটটা পড়লে কোথায়?
না ম্যাম মানে পড়েছিলাম আর কি, সেজন্য আর কি।
না না, Nyquist প্লটটা তুমি কে, নামটা বলো।
স্বর্ণদীপ
ভয়
সাহা।
স্বর্ণদীপ, আচ্ছা। তুমি কি মানে কোথায় পড়েছো Nyquist প্লট?
না ম্যাম আমি নিজেই মানে পড়েছিলাম আর কি, এই বই আর কি আগে।
Nyquist প্লট আমার পড়ানোর কথা, আগে পড়ার কথা নয় তোমাদের। পড়েছো, খুব ভালো করেছো। Nyquist তুমি অবশ্যই পাবে, গেন মার্জিন, ফেজ মার্জিন পাবে। ইনফ্যাক্ট আমিই পড়াবো যারা
হ্যাঁ
Nyquist
ঠিক আছে।
পড়োনি ক্লাসের।
হুম।
For the rest of the students, Nyquist criterion is part of the syllabus, and there I'll discuss elaborately gain margin and phase margin. But যখন তোমরা বোর্ডে প্লট পড়েছো তখন
ম্যাম আমরা বোর্ডে পড়ানো হয়নি আমাদের।
অনেকে বললো যে হ্যাঁ, বললো তো, তোমরাই তো বললে হ্যাঁ পড়ানো হয়েছে। কর্নার ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি বললে কি করে? গেন মার্জিন, ফেজ মার্জিন যখন বললাম ইয়েস বললে তো।
Ma'am, ST sir was supposed to cover it in the last semester, but
It's being recorded. Please don't take any name.
oh, sorry,
my-
sorry, but it was not done.
But just now you have said that you have studied
No, sir,
Bode plot, and
no,
you
no,
have
ma'am,
come
I
across
haven't
these
said.
terms, gain margin or phase margin. Anyway, forget it. It's not part of this chapter. While we'll be discussing Nyquist stability criterion, we'll try to learn what is meant by gain margin, phase margin. Gain margin, phase margin can be defined from Nyquist plot, can be defined from Bode plot, and these two are the frequency domain based performance relative stability measures. Now, the next section is devoted on necessary conditions for stability. So we'll learn what are the necessary conditions for stability. So let's assume that an nth order, a generic nth order system is being described by this equation, which is the characteristic equation of the system. Please note that all the time I'm using this phrase, characteristic equation of the system. Whenever you'll be using the term characteristic equation, please associate the characteristic equation either with a system or with a matrix. We'll come to that. Okay, so now we are discussing characteristic equation of a system. So for an nth order system, it's given by a0 is to the power n plus a1 is to the power n minus 1 plus an is equal to 0. Okay, so the coefficients of this equation are a0, a1, an minus 1, an. How many coefficients are there?
n plus 1.
n plus 1, right? So the necessary conditions are like this. All the coefficients of the characteristic equation. Okay, I'm repeating. For a system to be stable, the necessary condition states that all the coefficients of the characteristic equation of the system be real. Number one, be real. Number two, should bear the same sign, right? That means if we assume that a0 is greater than 0, that means a0 is positive, then all the coefficients should be positive. They should have the same sign. And this we can assume without any loss of generality, because if a0 is negative, we can multiply the characteristic equation by -1, and thus we can make a0 to be positive. So if a0 is positive, all the coefficients should be positive, or in other words, all the coefficients should bear same sign. That is the second part. And the third part is none of the coefficients should be 0. That means all these coefficients, all this n plus 1 number of coefficients should be present, right? That means a1 can't be 0, or an minus 1 can't be 0. So that is the necessary, or these are the necessary conditions. Okay. So again, just please go through this. All the coefficients, the necessary conditions, certain conclusions regarding the stability of the system can be drawn merely inspecting the coefficients of its characteristic equation. So simply, if you look at the characteristic equation, then some basic conclusion can be drawn in connection with the stability of the system. So certain conclusions regarding the stability of a system can be drawn merely inspecting the coefficients of its characteristic equation in polynomial form. This is the polynomial form. Here we have expressed the characteristic equation in polynomial form. So these are the necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions. So the necessary conditions are all the coefficients of the characteristic equation Q is equal to 0 of the system be real, have the same sign, and none of them should be 0. So why this condition? The first one, be real. We know that the roots of the characteristic equation can either be real or complex conjugate pair, right? So we can express those in product form, and if we multiply those and express the characteristic equation in polynomial form, in this form, then obviously all the coefficients will come out to be real, because the roots could be real or complex conjugate pair. You get the point? Have you understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Should have the same sign. Okay, we'll investigate this. And none of them should be 0. So this thing we can explain from this. Suppose an is equal to 0. This coefficient an is not present. N is equal to 0. Then just look at the characteristic equation. There will be a root at s equal to 0. So one root will be there at the origin of the S plane, isn't it? Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So in that case, the system cannot be said to be a stable one, asymptotically stable one. The system will be a limitedly, at best, the system will be a limitedly stable one or marginally stable one. If an and an minus 1, these two terms are absent, these two terms are 0, then what would happen? Two roots on the at the origin of the S plane, right? So repeated roots at the origin, so the system will be unstable. Right? So from this observation, we can infer that this point is valid, that none of them should be 0. And to investigate this in a bit detail, let us express the characteristic equation in this form. This equation 6.4, though the equation numbers will not be continuous anyway. So now, previously we expressed the characteristic equation in polynomial form. Now we are expressing the characteristic equation in factored form. That means we have identified the roots of the characteristic equation, and accordingly we are expressing the characteristic equation in factored form. Let's assume that we have taken A0 as common. So at your k is varying. So at sigma k's, k number of real roots will be there. Hence, this is product sign. You know that. So product of s in s plus sigma 1 into s plus sigma 2 into s plus sigma 3, so and so forth, dot 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 s plus sigma k, and product of complex conjugate root pair. Okay, so s plus sigma l square plus omega l square. Here we are assuming L number of complex conjugate root pairs are there. Okay, now, so if I consider this, so say s plus sigma 1. So s plus sigma 1 is equal to 0 if I want to find out the location of the real root. So s plus sigma 1 is equal to 0. That means s is equal to minus sigma 1, right? So if sigma 1 is positive, then only the root will lie in the left half of the S plane. Agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for the system to be stable, the sigma k's will have to be positive. Same logic can be applied for sigma l's as well, right? If sigma l's are negative, then the complex conjugate root pair, that particular complex conjugate root pair, will lie in the right half of the S plane. Agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means all the sigma k's as well as sigma l's should be positive. So when we'll multiply these factors and we'll try to express the characteristic equation in polynomial form, if sigma k's and sigma l's are positive, and obviously this is omega l square, so it's clear that the coefficients will come out to be positive if a0 is greater than 0, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
If one sigma k, look at this, if one sigma k is 0, then one S term will be there over here. And as I said, this term an will be 0 and one root will be there at the origin of the S plane, thus making the system a limitedly stable one, not a stable one, right? Similarly, if one sigma L is 0, then what could happen? Complex conjugate root pair will appear on the imaginary axis, number 1. And number 2, that means the system is not asymptotically stable. And number 2, since one sigma L is absent, That means we'll miss one particular term which is twice S sigma L. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So while we'll multiply all these factors, it might so happen that because of that missing term, twice S sigma L, ultimately in the characteristic equation, it might so happen that one term, one coefficient will come out to be 0. And similarly, we can place the same argument. If one sigma k is negative or one sigma L is negative, then this is simple, S minus sigma k, and here we'll get a term which is minus twice sigma ls, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes.
So that minus term, S minus sigma k or minus twice S sigma L, that negative that minus sign may get reflected in the coefficient, in the characteristic equation, as a negative coefficient. I've used the term might. Okay. Even if one sigma L is negative, it might so happen that all the coefficients will come out to be positive. But there is a possibility that if one sigma k is negative or one sigma L is negative, then that minus sign or will appear as a negative coefficient in this characteristic equation expressed in the polynomial form. Have you understood this? So far, is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the sufficient, sorry, these are the necessary conditions. Already we have, the points are enumerated here. You can go through this. Now, these necessary conditions are also sufficient conditions for only first order and second order system. First order and second order systems. So let's first consider a first order system. So the first order system, the characteristic equation will be A0 is plus A1, right? So A0, A1 has to be real, okay? And these two must bear the same sign. That is, these are the necessary conditions, and none of them should be absent. So if A1 is 0, is not present, then we'll get a pole, closed loop pole at the origin of the S plane, which is not measurable. And if S0 is absent, then it will not be a first order system at all. It will not be a dynamic system at all. So in this case, we'll get, since it's a first order system, we'll get a single root at S equal to S1, and the root will be located at minus A1 by A0. So if A1 and A0, if they bear same sign, then the single root of the system will lie in the left half of the S plane, and hence the system will be a stable one. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So that is also true for second order system. A second order system can be described with this characteristic equation: A0 is square plus A1 is plus A2 is equal to 0. A0, A1 and A2 all are present. If one of them is absent, you can find out what is going to happen. So all of them are present. So since it's a second order system, we'll get two roots at S1 and S2, and the root locations are given by this equation. Okay, you know this. So if all the roots A0, sorry, all the coefficients A0, A1 and A2 bear the same sign, then the roots will, both the roots will always occur in the left half of the S plane. Yes or no?
Ma'am, would you repeat?
Have you understood this characteristic equation?
Yes, ma'am.
A0 square plus A1s plus A2 is equal to 0. Huh? So the root
Yes.
locations S1 and S2 will be given by this equation, minus A1 plus minus root over A1 square minus 4 A0 A2 whole divided by twice A0, that you know. Yes or no?
Yes.
So you see, if A0, A1 and A2, if they have same signs, if they are all positive, let's assume A0 is greater than 0, A0 is positive, and A0, A1, A2, all of them are positive as dictated by the necessary conditions, then you'll find that the roots, both the roots, will appear or will occur in the left half of the S plane.
Okay.
Just try to solve it on your own, and you'll find that the roots will appear in the left half of the S plane, because you see, either the roots will be real roots, both the roots will be real roots, two real roots and distinct in nature, right? And if they are of same signs, all the coefficients are of same signs, then both the real and distinct roots will lie in the left half of the S plane, right? Now, if A1 square is equal to 4 A0 A2, what will happen? We'll get two real roots, but the roots will be repeated in nature, and the locations of the roots will be at is equal to minus A1 by twice A0, isn't it? Can you follow this?
Yes, ma'am.
So the repeated real roots are occurring at the left half of the S plane, in the left half of the S plane, isn't it? Okay, and the third case is this part is negative, but because of the presence of this part, minus A1 by twice A0, which is the sigma part. So sigma is negative, that means the complex conjugate root pair will lie in the left half of the S plane. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So we can conclude that the necessary conditions are also sufficient conditions for the stability of first and second order system. Now, for higher order systems, the necessary conditions are not sufficient conditions, and why and how to ascertain the stability of higher order system, that we'll learn in the next class. So, do you have any question? Do you have any question?
No, ma'am.
Okay, go through this. I've sent you the material. Have you received? I have sent you chapter 1.